The death toll from the novel coronavirus in the United States just keeps on climbing. The latest numbers have more than 10,000 people dying from the virus. To talk more about it is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining me via Skype from Los Angeles once again. Lisa, one of the hardest hit areas seems to be New York City. Now, we've seen the mobile field hospital set up in Central Park. Is the reason why the Big Apple was hit so hard because of the high density, the close proximity of so many people?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's a virus, right? And it's highly contagious. So you look at the population there, you look at the way of life there, you look at public transportation, the subways, taking taxis, taking Ubers, living on top of each other, having roommates, people obviously commuting to work, taking several trains and buses, being in their offices and having so many people there. So, it is the perfect recipe for spreading a virus that is so highly contagious. And they weren't so quick to quarantine and to stay at home. That's one of the blessings and I guess curses at the same time of the Big Apple is this, this work ethic, or this, nothing stops, or it doesn't sleep, as they always say, right? So I think they were very slow to say, stay home, work from home. I have friends who are attorneys, for example, work in a very, very fast-paced and crowded office in downtown. They take 3 trains to get there. They continue to work until I think almost last week. So, you think about all of that exposure, and by the time that this was flagged, the cases were already in the multiple thousands. So they don't have the facilities, they don't have the ventilators, they don't have the hospitals or the medical professionals to unfortunately deal with the number of people affected right now.
Yeah, we may not have seen the end of it for New York, especially with the numbers climbing and climbing every day. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is in intensive care unit right now at a London hospital, and he's suffering as well from COVID-19. How is he doing?
Yes, this is upsetting because his case went from bad to worse recently in the last few hours. And, obviously everyone is keeping an eye on the VIP corona patients, is what we call them at the foreign desk. We did a story on, all of the, kind of notable names out there, whether they're from Hollywood or they're leaders of state. And in this case, of course, everyone's looking at Boris Johnson and wondering if he, God willing, will recover from this. But, when people talk about COVID-19 versus the regular flu and talk about how, it's not even that big of a deal because, people die of the flu every winter, and we don't talk about that. Regardless, every single fatality is a mother, is a father, is a brother, is a sister, is a daughter, is a son, and the faces of these patients are not talked about. I don't think these people are getting proper funerals, of course, or memorials because of the you can't gather in social settings. So it's a scary time. It's an unfortunate time. These families are suffering. And of course, there's Boris Johnson, but there's Mary Smith and John Smith as well. So I think, it takes a lot of all Americans, of Canadians. I know people that know people, and that's going to happen to all of us pretty soon. And I think that's what's most upsetting about this.
Now, when it comes to COVID-19, there may be a light at the end of the tunnel since rates are actually falling in many countries hardest hit in Europe. Now, Italy is reporting its fewest coronavirus deaths in many weeks. The death toll over the weekend was around 525, but the country's total number of cases now stands at over 130,000.
Yeah, so Italy was on the exponential fast train on the number of deaths, and they continue to rise steadily every single day, very similarly to New York. Over the weekend, these countries in Europe, most notably Spain and Italy, who had the highest number of deaths, and they were really multiplying over and over again, along with New York. Governor Cuomo stated that there was a slight dip. So it's the first time that we're seeing an actual decrease in the number per day. We hope that this will continue going forward. We're not sure because the experts are actually telling us to brace for the worst, which is this week coming up. So, we'll take it. And I think that the markets reacted to that little dip also. It's a little bit of optimism in this horrific situation. And I think that if we do start seeing a slowdown, hopefully we will continue to have that optimism about this ending sooner rather than later.
Yeah, let's talk more a bit about Spain here. Spain recorded its smallest rate of increase in coronavirus infections since the start of the crisis. That's good news considering COVID-19 has claimed almost 12,500 people in that country, and they've also got confirmed cases, just over 130,000 there too.
Yes, it's spread very quickly there as well. If you've been to Spain, their urban cities, urban areas rather, are extremely populated, very similar to New York City. But more importantly, their medical infrastructure is not suited to take care of all these patients. I don't know if you've seen any of these videos of doctors in the hallways just meditating and praying because you look at a medical professional who is confident in what he or she has learned in medical school and is in there with the adrenaline pumping and taking care of their patients, but at the same time now, juxtapose that with these images of doctors just meditating and praying because they don't know what to do. Their patients by the dozen coding in front of them and they cannot help them. So with Spain, it's that, socialist medicine, really, that inability to properly take care of their patients. They are suited to take care of a small number in a very steady pace. And of course, this is outpacing them tremendously.
Lisa, another European nation, Denmark, which was considering reopening its borders, its country following the coronavirus shutdown, acknowledges there may be some difficulties with doing this now.
Yeah, so in Denmark, they're looking at the economy and how hard hit it's become, and then looking at the numbers, looking at how many people have been affected total and how many people have died. So those numbers are relatively conservative given the numbers around the world. And you have a couple of thousand cases reported and a couple of hundred. Oh, I don't even think it's up to 200 deaths, so it's under 200. And they are looking to open their economy by Easter. And they say if the numbers stabilize, they'll be able to do so. But if not, they'll have to reevaluate that decision. And I think, that is the tone that we're seeing around the world. We're seeing, obviously an eagerness to get back to business as usual, particularly given the economy, particularly given, the fact that people will have to recover from this. And it's going to become increasingly difficult and challenging to do so. So obviously everyone is very excited to get back to business as usual, but if those numbers do not flatten out, then they won't be able to. So I think they're going to take a look at these numbers and evaluate over and over again until they see that it's time to do so.
China saw an earlier drop of coronavirus cases, but that has changed dramatically as the Asian nation is now seeing a slight increase once again of the virus. And the National Health Commission said that 25 of those cases come from people who travel into the country. Mainland China, Lisa, has recorded close to 82,000 infections and just over 3,300 deaths after a dramatic drop in cases since February.
Yeah, well, Hal, what can I tell you? Every time I see a headline from China, I think, why are we even covering it? What can we believe, right? So, as you said correctly, we had reports of obviously a very steady climb in cases. This started in November in Wuhan, in China, continued to grow. We saw the heinous footage of people just dropping on the streets. And then fast forward to, oh my goodness, we didn't even have that many cases here. And now who's affecting us? People who are actually flying in. Let me guess, it's the West's fault for bringing coronavirus back to China. We can't believe anything coming out of China right now, and it's very unfortunate. If anything at all was underscored in this entire incident, it is the lack of transparency that we have from China and the way that the West has forfeited so many opportunities, so many jobs, so much of the economy, and we rely on a liar state in order to get so many of the products, so many of the pharmaceuticals, so much that we depend on, but yet we can't get a straight answer out of them. So I hope if nothing else has changed, we at least now know going forward that this must change.
Unlike Canada and the United States, Lisa, Mexico is not rolling out a financial economic recovery plan. Instead, they're looking at beefing up social programs and maybe pumping up their state-owned oil company.
Yeah, this is an interesting take from Mexico. What they're going to do is it's kind of like mirroring the stimulus package that they have here in the United States in boosting the economy, but instead of it going directly to individuals, it's going to go to specific industries that they believe will create jobs, that will beef up the economy in an indirect way. They want to trickle and grow the economy. So they're actually being super eager here. Not only do they want to save the economy in this very, very, very difficult time, they actually have plans of growing the economy, meaning more jobs, more opportunities, more businesses by pumping this money into businesses and into social programs, into giving grants, into the oil industry, etc. So this is, I think, part of a much larger program to increase opportunity, and more power to them if they can pull this off.
Many countries in Africa are preparing for a complete collapse of economies as the coronavirus takes its toll there. Tell me more.
Yeah, of course. When you look at Wall Street and the way that this virus has hit, some of the largest economies on earth, what do we expect from weaker and more vulnerable economies like countries in Africa? We never talk about Africa. Only recently, you and I, Hal, started talking about, the growth of not only extremist elements there, but likewise the opportunities there that China and Russia, the Iranian regime have looked into, taking advantage of these opportunities within the African continent. So we know that they're very vulnerable. They're looking for to be adopted almost by these larger empire states. In the meantime, this coronavirus is taking them back a lot. We didn't hear about cases there. It didn't spread there as quickly as it spread in Europe and here. But unfortunately, it's there now, and it's taking a large toll on what we thought was some sort of opportunity for growth in the last few years for Africa.
Let's discuss some of the economies around where you live as well, like in California and Southern California. Hollywood's probably been hit pretty hard right now, which is a big part of the industry there, as well tourism. Let's talk about specifically where you are.
Sure. I think the hardest hit places in the United States are the coasts, New York and Los Angeles. Flights are being either canceled or minimized. People are obviously encouraged not to travel, to stay home. The streets for the most part are empty. The movie industry, they've said that they're not shooting new films for a long period of time. As you know, the film industry has moved out of California a lot for budgeting reasons and other reasons. But for what it's worth, it starts here, right? The resources, the offices. And New York, obviously, being the nucleus of the United States in many ways with regards to business, the financial district, et cetera, that's completely shut down, and people are afraid to go to work, even when, they're telling us to wear masks, but at the same time, the best thing to do is stay home. Now, the challenge here will become as the weather gets better. You see more people wanting to come out onto the streets, go to parks, go to the farmers market. That's very popular here in Los Angeles. You see the footage of these people standing almost like sardines next to each other trying to buy produce that's organic, and it's so crazy to us watching this and thinking, stay home. You don't need organic produce right now. So that's been kind of a debate here. So they think it's open air and it's fine, and they think that the weather's getting better, so people are going on hikes and going to the beaches, but they're cracking down on that. They're telling people to stay home, don't go hiking, don't go to the beach, try to stay away from the parks, and try to quarantine as best as possible. We have to flatten this curve.
Twitter has removed 8,000 fake accounts tied to Saudi Arabia and Egypt. Many were essentially pro-government propaganda tools. Now, the social media company also shut down 12,000 accounts tied in with governments in Indonesia, Honduras, and Serbia.
Yes, who would have thought, right? But it makes perfect sense. These are the countries that are carrying out the agenda of the richer rogue states like Saudi Arabia, like Iran, like China, like North Korea, and countries that have invested in this online propaganda, Qatar being another one, Morocco being another one. I mean, these countries put their money on social media, and it's a wonderful and it's a smart idea. It's truly a smart idea. Now, when we talk about 12,000 accounts being shut down by Twitter, I mean, it's a needle in a haystack when you think about it. It's nothing. It's nothing. And, to their credit, it's wonderful that they're doing this, but, it's very difficult to also find these accounts. They're always kind of behind the curve. If you remember seeing many of these terrorist attacks and then seeing, well, the guy had a manifesto on Facebook, the guy had a manifesto on Instagram about killing people and about having, carrying out a suicide attack. Well, it's only after the fact. These are not flagged soon enough early enough preemptively to stop these kinds of attacks. And we have the same thing with these bots. It's very difficult to clean up, but we're happy that they're doing so.
Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining me once again from Los Angeles. Thanks so much, Lisa. Stay safe.
You too. Thank you.